feel like most entrepreneurs maybe have a more generalist brain because a generalist brain can see the whole picture, can see everything that needs to come to life in order to get a business off the ground. And then we, as generalist brain entrepreneurs, hold on to things because we're like, we can do it better than a specialist.
Right.
Dish it to the specialist. I mean, it's mind blowing.
The Business Owner's Journey. I'm Nick Berry, and I've got real business owners telling their real stories, sharing their real lessons and strategies so you don't have to figure it all out on your own. Jessica Yarmey started a franchise, took it from 0 to 30 locations in 2 years, and then sold to Mayweather Boxing and Fitness. Now she's launching a new fitness franchise concept called FlexSociety, and she's at the same time launched a marketing agency called SizzleSociety. In our conversation, she shares why she feels compelled to share her entrepreneurial lessons in public in real time, how to filter for the right business coach, taking a franchise from 0 to 30 units, and this happened during COVID, and then having a generalist versus a specialist mentality as an entrepreneur. We also spent some time talking about all of the other mental hurdles that we give ourselves as entrepreneurs. Jessica is an open book. She's got a ton of insight. Enjoy the episode and make sure that you follow Jessica and keep up with her. If you find the show valuable, I hope you'll subscribe and would love to get a review from you. Now you can subscribe to the Business Owner's Journey newsletter by going to nickberry.info/email. And every week I'm sharing business lessons and, as Jessica put it, the shit I needed to hear 10 years ago. So make sure that you go to nickberry.info/email and get subscribed to that newsletter. Okay, now we go to the show. So Flex Society is still concept, right?
Yeah.
But not hasn't launched. But the agency is launched, right?
Yeah. And that's been my last year, is just that learning of, I was pushing on Flex Society, pushing on it, trying to get funding, trying to bring it to life. And I really just pivoted, not even a full 180, just like a little slight degree different change, different focus. And all of a sudden it just started to unlock and roll in. And that's been such a lesson because everything I thought I wanted to do changed, and it turns out I was wrong about what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to be able to pivot, go with the flow, and follow the green lights, if you will.
And it work out.
We're in it right now, so we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll have that 2-year reconnect, and we'll figure out if it's really working.
But the way that you said that made it sounds like you made the pivot and to the agency, and that has gotten legs, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I want to say I went back to my core. I went back to what I know best. When I talk to people about it, when I talk to my friends about it, I will say I girl bossed a little bit too close to the sun, and I need to step back from that a little bit and just go back to what I know I can knock out of the park, and that's marketing things. So I think that's when I started the marketing agency, and I haven't even advertised it really. I've just connected with people that are in my network, in my family. It's a lot of fitness people, and just started to have conversations and said, hey, I'm building this. Are you interested in working together? And it really just came together quickly. So I don't know. You've built a lot of businesses. Have you seen like some have been an uphill battle the whole way and others have come together really seamlessly?
Yes. And I think so. They're all an uphill battle, right? But some of them are, it's a different type of uphill battle. It's maybe an uphill battle with the wind at your back. But I think, and it kind of ties, so my explanation for that would kind of tie to what I've seen, what I think I've seen out of you. I mean, like for anybody listening, I've known you for 2 weeks. It's kind of miraculous that we didn't know each other sooner, because it's like with our backgrounds, we almost would have had to have avoided one another somehow. They had to, they overlapped a lot.
The Venn diagram of our interests is basically just a circle.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But I can totally see like you turning your attention toward marketing and it clicking really well, because everything that I've seen out of you exudes that understanding an audience, like you know who you're talking to. There's like this level of awareness there. And then this ability to state things in ways that are reasonable and insightful and but simple enough that they're like that somebody can read them and follow them. You're not like talking over your audience's head or trying to complexify messages. Everything that I've seen comes across as someone who is good at conveying who they are. And our conversations, you seem to be like very self-aware. As a marketer, those are the boxes that absolutely have to be checked, right? Like you have to be aware, you have to be able to communicate, you have to be able to do some adapting in there. And like, you are that.
Well, thank you so much for that compliment. And it means a lot to me because I'm very focused right now on, I'm only 6 years into my entrepreneurial journey. You're 20 something years in, right? Like, so you have so many lessons. And I feel like even in my 6 years, I have so many lessons, and they're not comfortable lessons. They are waterboard style lessons. And I want to put everything that I've learned out there for people to make it seem a little bit more approachable and to help somebody maybe avoid the obstacles that I've had to go through. And I'm in a pay it forward season. I'm in a add value to the next person kind of season, knowing that it will eventually come back around. And so when people say like, do you have a content strategy? It's almost real time of what is in my mind. What lessons am I either currently learning or currently digesting that happened years ago, but I haven't had to unpack them or haven't wanted to unpack them. But it's things that I'm really dealing with right now. And so I think that's why it seems self-aware, because it's very much in my brain right now. It's very real. And I'm still going through it. And so it's not solved. It's a little bit of like, hey, here's the puzzle piece. Like, here's the thing that I've found, and I think to me, it just means a lot it makes the lessons feel a little bit less painful if I can take that pain and like put it into something good. And the thing that could be good is like, I pay it forward to the next person, and I know you do a lot of mentoring, and maybe you get the same payback kind of feeling of all the things that I've learned. I'm gonna give this to the next person. Why did you originally get into mentoring? How did that come to be?
You described it really well. It's man, here's all the shit that I wish somebody would have told me, or that they probably did tell me a lot of these things and I didn't hear it for whatever reason. But the bottom line is, here's what I know now that I've learned in some way, shape, or form through the act. And so these are my like earned secrets. My game is I can shorten the learning curve for somebody else. There are things that somebody else who's going to go down this path of entrepreneurship, like they're going to learn them the hard way, no matter what. That's how some of it is going to come to pass. But there are a lot of things where I can save you time or the money or the sleepless nights. Like, lose your sleep at night over something else. It doesn't have to be this thing that I learned that I can very clearly like hand over to you. And I don't really know why that has always been my thing. But it, from day one as a business owner, I've just always felt like I could learn something on the fly and it would kind of stick with me like, man, there's got to be an easier way. So then I could pass that, I'll try to package that up and pass that along to somebody else, in whether it was through information products or coaching, mentoring, franchising. Like, there's just a way that all of this earned knowledge can be shared and other people can like access it for speed and save themselves some of the skinned knees or pound of flesh,
Did
because
you
you're going to
have a
get them anyway.
mentor? Did you have a mentor along your journey, or did you have more book resources that you followed, or what were your guiding principles?
So I really didn't have, there were people who I could talk to that I could get information, but I wasn't very good at asking for help. and I'm still probably not very good at it, to be honest with you. At somewhere along the way, I figured out like I've got to be around. I need to be in a room with more people who are thinking about these things. Like I didn't know what I didn't know, but I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know how to like start to find those blind spots. And I started picking around, and we were like in my business at that time, we were doing mastermind programs for other business owners. I don't know at what point my light bulb came on, but I was like, I need to be a part of something like this. So I found Vistage, and that's really where things took off for me. And Vistage is, if anybody doesn't know, it's the executive coaching program. And it's a mastermind program for what I would have described at that time as like real business owners. Getting in the room with them, like just unlocked so many things for me about the way that I thought about things, the way that I learned to like look to other people and get other inputs to like feed me. And then from there, like I acquired mentors, and since then, that's kind of where I've landed on, my philosophy on that is I think everybody needs a coach or a mentor, a one-on-one person who is like, they are invested in your best interest. Their job is to tell you things that you might not want to hear. You need to be part of a bigger community, like industry wide, just something like a big network. And then you need to be part of a smaller, more intimate group of peers, people who are doing more of what you do, but understand your business at a deeper level, so they can tell you like, hey, I don't know if what you're saying is exactly what, how you need to be looking at this. And so it took me a while. Again, I can shorten the learning curve for somebody. I can tell you, these are the 3 things I think that you need in your circle of support. It took me 10 years of doing things all kinds of backwards before I finally realized, like, if I just had a coach and a big group and a small group who would all call me on my BS, I would have gotten here a lot faster.
Okay, but it seems like in the industry now, and because entrepreneurship is cool now, you can trip over entrepreneurship coaches, you could trip over masterminds, you can trip over buy my course. And how do you cut through that noise to know who's the right group for you or who's the right coach for you? Like, how do you think about that as a coach?
Yeah. So,
Get on the soapbox. I
that's,
want to hear this. Because this is something I think about all the time.
yeah, I'm putting my language filter on real quick. So the onus is on you, right? At a certain point, the business owner has to be responsible for doing some critical thinking. You have to use some judgment. You're not always going to be right. Like, not every option out there is as good as they say they are, but there are a lot of good options out there, and you don't have to get the very best one. Like, don't look for the only one out there for you, right? There are a lot of fish in the sea, but you need to be able to exercise some judgment and so be able to discern between like who is in this top tier group of people who would be a good fit for me versus who would not. It's a lot like identifying like the whole ideal client, target market, and say, are you going to work with everybody, or are you going to work with like this small segment? And it's so much easier to say it until you're like in the trenches and you're having to actually make the judgment on the fly, like recognize these characteristics that they're not actually boxes to check on this profile. I'm having to listen and pay attention to a person and what they're communicating with me, and then decide like, do they fit more of this profile or that profile? It's the same thing, but ultimately, like, you have to strengthen your critical thinking muscles as a business owner and learn to use some judgment. And no matter where you land, like my take is if you're using some judgment, if you've got a coach, a support group, like, good, that's better than nothing. Now, like, hold them accountable for the things that you're trying to get. And if it's not a good fit, then fine, go look for what is, move in a better direction. But, going from 0 to 1 is a big step.
Yeah, I think you started talking about self-awareness, and I think maybe part of that math is self-awareness of find a coach that's going to match
Hmm.
with you. So my brain and my background, I have attention deficit. I have a creative part of my brain, and I've almost for years tried to mute it and dial it down. And now as an entrepreneur, I'm just self-aware. This is me. I don't medicate. It's my superpower to just go
Yeah.
and to just be. And that's how I get to ecosystem, because I'm like, you know what? Some days I'm going to want to do this, and then I'm going to want to do this, and I want to be able to harness it all. And so I have that to my day. Like my workflow is all over the place. And I jumped on this mastermind group call, and one of the coaches that was on the call had a time blocking philosophy around his coaching. And without knowing me or my background or what I've built so far, he's like, well, I don't see how you could be successful without a time blocked calendar. I was immediately just like, okay, goodbye.
Mhm.
Like, who are you to try to shoehorn me into your philosophy just because it's the latest book you've read on time management?
Yeah.
I'm not going to just do your process because it works for you and has worked for other people who have a more structured brain and time flow. But I think to go back to that self-awareness topic, it's understanding, like, if you're somebody who is a more creative brained, in the flow kind of person, you're not going to work well with a coach that is a
Right.
time bound, time blocking kind of coach. And so maybe it's,
Right.
clarifying or asking the coach, like, what are some of their pillars or philosophies around those kind of things.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect example. And that doesn't necessarily mean that their way is wrong. It may work very, very well for some people, but it's not going to necessarily put you in a position to excel. And so, okay, that's fine. Like you're not the fit for them. They're not the fit for you, but we need to find the fit for you. I think, the one of the biggest things that causes confusion when your business owners are looking support or coaching is like, do you want somebody to tell you what to do? Or do you want somebody who's going to help you become a better thinker or move you toward your aspirational version of yourself? If you're looking for somebody to tell you what to do, you're not looking for a coach. Like that's a different game.
You're looking for a
And
boss.
yeah, exactly. Most of the time, that is it right there. And that way of thinking is going to cause you there's another set of issues that's going to come with that if you are running your own business and you need somebody to tell you what to do. But it's just separating those two things out, I think helps a lot of people decide like, oh yeah, what I'm really looking for right now is I need to answer to this question. Or I don't really have a particular question. I just need like some help figuring out like what should I be focused on? What like how do the good ones get through these things?
Yeah.
All right, then you probably need more of a coach or a mentor.
Yeah. And so many times I think as entrepreneurs, we have the answers in our minds. We just need somebody to ask us the question
Yep.
that unlocks it all. And and sometimes as entrepreneurs, you're so in your business and you're so in your operational mode and you're in the weeds, and you need somebody who's standing out looking at the forest saying, "Hey, what about this?" And it's
Yeah.
not, to your point, it's not saying here's what to do. It's just saying here's this question that you might not have thought of recently because you've been buried under your to-do list. You've been buried under meetings. You've been buried under running payroll, all the things that entrepreneurs have to deal with. And you've lost connection to the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the best most impactful moments that I've ever had working with a coach was a few years ago. I don't remember what the situation was, but I kept bumping into the same problem, and it wasn't a major thing, but it was kind of becoming major because I wasn't solving it permanently. And I kind of had gotten kind of into this routine of like, this should go this way. It should go this way. It should go this way. Or we should be able to do this and it work. And all he did was reframing. It was like, let's don't use the word should, just replace that with the word could. Like, how could you do this? How could, and what that like cleared out all of these other things that over time I just like jumbled up my thinking with. That it was like, oh, they don't actually matter. We've got all of this space that we could solve this problem. We can maneuver. And I bet I've used that phrase like, how could we, how could you? That's probably the most commonly used phrase that I've had for me in my professional life since then. I mean, that kind of impact, but that's what a coach does, right?
Yeah.
It's just that little like, hey, you're close, but maybe try this, and it unlocks something.
Can I layer on to that? Because I think my last year has been a lot of that. We, as entrepreneurs, we go in with a plan, whether it's an official business plan or whether it's just a vision in our mind of what we want to do. And this was exactly where I was 12 months ago. I had a plan. I have a new fitness concept I want to create. I know exactly what it's going to look like. I know exactly the equipment that's going to be in it. And I go and I'm running and I'm effort. And it's uphill. And exactly to your point, it's like, stay open to the possibility that there's something that's off script that you do not have in your business plan, that's not part of what you had mapped out on a napkin or otherwise. Just stay open to it might be a right turn, it might be a left turn, it might be just something that like catches your eye, but all of a sudden you look in that direction and it's all green lights. Go. And when you hit that place and it's flowing, so many times we don't sprint because we're like, it's not part of the plan. That wasn't the plan.
Yeah.
Just go. Where it's green lights, just go. Matthew McConaughey's book on green lights, listen to it on Audible so you get his voice attached to it. But it's just all about that layer of intuition and the layer of the universe showing you this is where it's at. And gosh, I have spent way too much time and wasted months sitting at red lights, just wishing and hoping and working and trying to get the light to turn green. Just go in a different direction. Go where the lights are green. And I love that thought of just like, stay open to other possibilities. Like there's the possibility that it could go in a different way. And it's okay. Like stay open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so that I want to come ask you then, your franchise, you went from 0 to 30 on the first franchise. How straight of a line was that? Or how much like adapting did you have to do along the way?
It was also during COVID. So there was no straight line. I had 20 years of experience at that point. I had been in the fitness industry for 15 years, like years, playbooks. I knew what to do, but I had no idea what to do during COVID. No idea what to do.
Had you been in franchising?
Yeah,
before that?
I had been in franchising. Yeah. And so like I knew the playbooks, but put those playbooks in the middle of a pandemic, it all goes out the window. And it's truly like day by day decisions where your typical modeling would be what's happening year over year, or what's happening quarter over quarter, day over day. Like, where are we today? What are the restrictions that are in place today? And so it was an exercise in be ready to throw out everything that you knew and be ready to create something that you have never done before based on what you used to know to be true. And and people talk to me about that experience and they said, didn't you think it was risky? And I more see it as it would have been riskier just to stay still and to not try to like learn and grow and not try to evolve as the world was shifting and evolving. Like so many people try to just like stay still or stay on their plan, stay on their track. And so it goes back to what we were just talking about. Stay open to something you've never done before. Stay open to something that comes your way that's a total challenge that scares the heck out of you. You know, as an entrepreneur, I feel like if you're not scared, you're not going fast enough, right? That's like a Mario Andretti quote, like about race car driving. Like, if you don't feel completely out of control, you're not going fast enough. And I feel that exact way about about entrepreneurship.
You asked me the question about mentorship and guidance. What about you? What have you or do you have in your corner?
Part of what is driving me now to do what I do and post as much as I post or put out as much content as I do is I really didn't have a strong female mentor. I had a lot of male bosses. I had a lot of male mentors, and I still do have a lot of male mentors. And I think that's served me well from a standpoint of I build in the fitness space, which is a male dominated business, in the franchising business model, which is a male dominated business model. So, from that standpoint, I've had the correct mentors to bring me through the game. From the standpoint of how do I lean into my woman entrepreneur, I would say not. It's just a differentiator. It's a little bit of a different. It's a different skill set that I can bring to the table as a woman leader. And I started to tap into that more when I founded KickHouse because I realized that being a female leader in a male dominated space, in a male dominated business model, in martial arts, which is a male dominated modality, just simply being a woman led business with a woman focused energy to it was enough of a niche that I could build in that niche. And but then in order to build in that niche, I need to be able to understand, what does that mean? What is the differences? What does it mean to bring more femininity to how I lead or how I build, or how I show up as an entrepreneur? And there really weren't, I didn't have good role models for that. So my even current podcast list, I listen to Gary Vee all the time. I listen to Ed Milet all the time. And I find that a lot of the female entrepreneurs that are pushing content out, it's like the Sarah Blakely's of the world, where she's so far ahead of where I am that it's almost unrelatable, and it's difficult to connect with because she's so successful. And so I want to show up from the weeds. I want to show up in the work, in the mud. I'm in the highs, I'm in the lows. I want to share all of that so that someone who's building from 0 to 30 has that as a resource. And hopefully I'll still be a resource when they're building from 200 to 1000. I want to be all along that way because I want to continue to learn and grow, but I didn't have that example to follow. And so I feel obligated to put information out there, to put content out there, to put my learnings out there. But so many people hesitate to share because there's already a Sarah Blakely, or there's already a Whitney Wolf, or there's already an insert name here. If you're a man, there's already a Gary Vee, there's already Alex Hermosi, there's already Ed Milet, there's already these people out there. But the point is there's not a you out there. And so to tie in self-awareness, like once you start to understand who you are and why you are, it becomes a feeling of obligation to put that out there more. And so I say to my team all the time, like, you need to be posting more, and it can't just be personal life things. Like, if you want to be, or if you have C-level aspirations, you need to start in this game now, even entrepreneurial aspirations. Like, if you have a strong enough personal platform, it's easier to build as an entrepreneur because you can build off of your personal platform. Your personal platform starts to become the foundation, but that doesn't happen overnight. I've been consistently posting for 10 years on LinkedIn, and I'm just now at, I don't know, 6,000, 7,000 followers. So it takes time to find your voice. It takes time to find your flow. It all takes time. Even doing podcasts, you don't wake up one day and decide, I want to be really good at podcasts. Like, you start day one and you do the first one and it's bad. And then you do the next one and it's better. And then the next one is better. And then the next one's better. And so I think too many people, especially women, sit the game out because they think it needs to be like a perfect result. or they think it needs to be a perfect game. And it doesn't. The game is being out there, figuring it out, and posting as you learn.
It takes so long, like it takes a really long time, like you just said. And so much of that time, I think, is removing those self-imposed hurdles, the mental hurdles, all of the things that you're thinking that at the end of it, you're going to look back and be like, oh, that wasn't really true. Right? Like there's not another Nick Berry out there. There is a Gary Vee and Ed Milet and all the people that you just mentioned, but to be honest, I don't give a shit. Like I don't have any control over that. What I have control over is me and what I do, and I need to execute the way you just described. Like, get the first one out there. What can you learn from that? Use that to improve. Do the second one, then do the third, then do the fourth. Start to put together a picture of like what I want this to look like. What's the aspirational image, and how do I get there? There's just a lot of it takes a long time because it's hard to do, and a lot of the difficulty is the mental barriers that we create for ourselves. And everybody does it. Everybody does it.
And one of the mental barriers that I've had that I've really tried to break down or break around is just having a goal, post for some result, build a podcast for some result, build a business for some result. I think we as business people grow up thinking always attached to goals. There's always a reason. And maybe especially with the podcast, if 5 people listen to my podcast, or even this podcast, like if 5 people listen to Nick's podcast, if it's the right 5, I'm good with that. The goal is not be Gary Vee, or the goal is not to reach 1 million people. The goal is to learn what I've learned, to be able to succinctly say it, pass it along, and feel good about the right people finding it and the right people connecting with it.
Exactly. I love that. It's the goal is not a number. It's the right people, the right listener. So what's, I guess, thinking forward, what are you working on right now, first of all?
So the LLC that I filed this time last year is for FlexSociety. And FlexSociety is a fitness concept. That's a boutique fitness franchise that I want to get off the ground. It's on the back burner. I built it, started it, it's in my mind, and I couldn't get it launched. And so then I pivoted, and in about December, decided to launch the marketing agency, which is called SizzleSociety, which is my primary focus area right now. And it's a marketing agency to support early stage franchise brands that don't have the payroll to fund a full marketing department. So I'll essentially be their fractional marketing department. And we have a lot of clients in the fitness space, but we have clients that are outside of the fitness space also. But it's really right in the wheelhouse of what I'm good at. And then I started the podcast to somewhat interact with the agency, but then also just to stay connected to people that I know I need to stay connected to anyway. One of the things as I've been working through my entrepreneurship is I've felt so grateful for the network that I have. And there's so many people, I don't like to ask for help either. And there's so many people when I did pick up the phone and say like, I need help. So many people have helped me big time in the last few years. And it's just made me appreciate the fact that I have such a strong network of people that I'm not just connected to from a work perspective, but really, truly, I would call them friends. And so then to be able to put our conversations into a format and put them out into the world, those are the kind of things that light my soul on fire, to be able to stay connected to people who are amazing people, to continue to have really great conversations with them. And instead of having those conversations via text, via cell phone call, and I learn from them, but no one else does, it feels very selfish. So I just decided I'm going to start podcasting all of these great conversations that I have with all the great people that I know. And so that's my ecosystem right now. And I guess the center of that ecosystem is my personal brand. And that's why I'm so big on even younger, I don't even want to say young entrepreneurs, so like young professionals start focusing on your personal brand, because if you build your brand connected to values, connected to certain themes that you are passionate about, you can not just build a business on top of your personal brand, but you could start to create an ecosystem around your personal
Hmm.
brand. And I mean, you kind of have an ecosystem structure too.
You said FlexSociety was on the back burner. Are you planning on getting it off the back burner? Are you going to still try to grow it, or are you questioning that?
If someone came to me tomorrow and it was the right person, I'm ready to go. Coming off of my last exit, I'm so sensitive to working with the right people, building with the right people. And I think that's one of the reasons why it ended up on the back burner, was because I was almost maybe gun shy about moving forward with the wrong person, and not wanting to be financially tied to the wrong people ever again.
Yeah.
And in conversations that I had, asking my network for help, talking this through, more than one person said to me, Jessica, if you can bootstrap it, bootstrap it.
Hmm.
And so there's a reality where the ecosystem could fund itself. There's a reality where the right person comes in and adds fuel to that ecosystem, or adds fuel to one aspect of that ecosystem, and it starts to fund itself. And I'm open to all of the possibilities, but I'm closed to the wrong person just dangling money in front of my face, because I've been there. I made that mistake, and I'm not going to do that again. It has to be the
Yeah.
person who's in it for the right reasons. And
Do you know what that person looks like? Like, can I help you find them?
absolutely, I think it's somebody who is experienced at building franchises and scaling franchises and exiting franchises. So, like, I have built and scaled and exited, but in terms of bringing PE money in at the right time, what would be the mile markers to maybe make those decisions? The financial side is where I got stuck, quite honestly, on my last effort. And so, where you're building a business and it is going, 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 and you're slowed by your own runway, that's what I did wrong before. And that's the kind of person I need to help build the next one. Is like,
Hmm.
the runway has to be correct in order for that problem to not happen again. So I think it's somebody who is passionate about building, and not just passionate about the exit. Um, I love having goals, but I love the process. Like, I just love being in my businesses. I love building. And I think, again, there's like the vision that you put down on paper and you stick it to your bulletin board. And then there's the way that things end up happening. And it usually is two different things. So I think
Hmm.
it's connecting to a person who builds in the same way. And at this point, I'm a scrappy entrepreneurial kind of startup builder. And I know I can build something to 30. I also know I can support it from 200 to 600. I've done both of those things before. And I think what's frustrating as a female founder is, like, despite those successes, it's been difficult to connect with the people who see that that's out there as a possibility.
Yep, I can see that. I definitely want to introduce you to one of my other guests, Matt Goebel. He knows that world. Matt is the founder of Woven. They've done like enterprise software for franchises.
Hmm.
So he's not necessarily the solution. He's who, if I'm looking for what you just described, I'm going to Matt and asking him like who fits this description. I'll connect you with him.
That's amazing. And to go back to my last thought of, like, at some point you outgrow your network. It's a good problem to have, to not know, to not have anyone in your network who knows this problem. But then it is about raising your hand and saying, the exact conversation we just had. What are you looking for? Talk it out.
Mm-hmm.
Share it with everybody. Post about it publicly online. I announced
Yeah.
I announced FlexSociety online a year ago because I was like, I need to put this out there so that the right person is going to connect with me about it. And so in a way, it's like I kind of like posted publicly like a fail, like a flop, but I just see it as part of it's part of being an entrepreneur is like you start things, you reprioritize them, and it's on the back burner, but it is definitely not dead in my mind. And it's still part of like what I consider to be like my ecosystem of focus.
Yeah. Well, so to what you said about like posting and it could be seen as a fail, that's how this conversation came about, right? Made a post. And I was like, hey, LinkedIn, I need to talk. I need somebody who can talk about this topic and get this flurry of names. And I look at your profile and I'm like, holy shit, how do I not know this person already? First of all, because it's like we walk this path, like it's like our journey, we walked this on the same road together for a really long time. We were on opposite sides of the road for some reason.
Yeah.
But here we are. And I think, yeah, I don't really put too much stock in the whole, like, could be seen as a failure. It's like, how to ping the network. And at the same time, your brand is authenticity and reality. And so sometimes like that might be what it looks like to somebody who's not paying attention,
Yeah.
but to the people who are in your sphere, that's just you pinging the network.
Well, and to your point about authenticity, the person who connected us is Crystal Wheeler, who, if you're in the fitness industry, you probably know Crystal. And what an amazing superpower to have to be a connector. She's just a super connector of people. And so again, if you're somebody who's listening to this and you're trying to get connected to people, connect with the super connectors and put it out there as like, here's what I'm looking for. And super connectors see it so clearly.
Mm.
Crystal has connected me with more than one person who I've connected with her after, and I've just said, how did you know I would exactly vibe with that person? And she said, oh, I just know. I knew. So it's definitely a superpower. And I think that's what LinkedIn is. It's a gift. And LinkedIn's a great place for those kind of connections.
Yeah. So, and we're going to be able to map this out. So a year from now, whenever FlexSociety, you've met this person and, we're already at 30. It's going to be Nick made a post on LinkedIn. Crystal made the connection. We had a conversation. You happen to mention what you're looking for, Matt Goebel, and then person X came.
Yes. But Nick, that's how these things happen.
Oh, yeah.
And I think as early entrepreneurs, you sometimes get in your head in a solopreneur kind of mindset. I need to figure it out. I need to be able to do all of this myself. I need to be able to, even in a consulting business, do A to Z in my business. And the reality is, even if you are a solopreneur, there are things that you need to take off of your plate and tap into resources that are out there that can keep you in your superpower and not have you dealing with things that you're not great at. And and just having those kind of moments is so important, because you take something you hate off of your plate and you put it onto someone's plate who loves that part of the business, and you start to grow so much faster. Have you seen that with people you've worked with or teammates you've worked with, where like you're great at one thing and they're great at another?
Yep. And well, like one of the biggest obstacles, mental hurdles that I've had to work through myself was the one you just described. Like I'm very, very, very independent. Like I have to figure it out. I have to make sure that it gets done. And so it took me a long, long time to work through. There are things that I don't like to do. Like, first of all, none of what I just said is true. I don't have to figure it out. What's important is that it gets figured. And then there are things that I don't enjoy doing that's not the case for somebody else. Like, my wife is a great example. Like we are opposites in a lot of ways where, if there's some of the things that I'm just extremely like molasses moving on, she can just mow through them and enjoy doing it. And there are just things that I would tell myself about, like, well, if it sucks to do, then it must suck for everybody. And that's not true. I mean, I think another one of the like major inflection points for me as a leader was right after I got into Vistage, we had a speaker come in. It was my first experience with disc profiles. And like, disc is whatever disc is, but it was the assessment and the profiles and learning to recognize like whatever I'm trying to project on everybody else about myself is like totally false. Right. And so whatever it is that I don't like about that person, the way that person does this thing, like I have my own version of that. And so like, it's all right for me to feel this way because everybody has their own version of that. And that's when I started to realize like, okay, I need to stop looking at it like we're all from the same cookie cutter and more like we're pieces to a puzzle that we're going to need to find all the pieces and we can complement each other. It finally got me to break through and realize the truth to the statement of like going, if you want to go, was it fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Yeah.
I completely agree with that. And I'll just share that people ask me about building KickHouse and going from 0 to 30 as fast as we did. And it was the first time I was a CEO. So I went from CMO focused on marketing to CEO to start this fitness concept during the pandemic. All chips stacked up against me being able to do this. And the moment I wrapped my head around raising my hand and asking for help and giving a task out to someone, the moment I connected that action brought them closer to me as a leader and brought them closer to our brand and brought them into the overall project that we were trying to bring to life, it unlocked everything.
Mm-hmm.
I just started to dish homework. I was dishing to everyone. There were days that I didn't work. I just dished. And I think that's honestly the thing that helped us go fast was just everyone's working on things and they're connected to the overall purpose because they are working on things. And I think sometimes as leaders we think people don't want more work, but the reality is people do want work if it's connected to their disc profile, like if it's in their superpower, they want that work. And people want to feel connected to the bigger picture. And so if you can do those two things by dishing out homework, by all means, like as leaders, we need to do that. We need to get comfortable doing that.
Yep. Agreed. I think if you've got the right people on the team, it's more likely that they're sitting there wondering like, you have more for me? What else can I do? Than them sitting there thinking, oh, you're giving me more work. We always like, for some reason, we want to frame things around like the worst case scenario, which tends to be like the outlying scenario. It's kind of like, it's like the critics on online, right? You envision, I'm going to make this post and then I'm going to get all these negative, like, no, you're not. And if you do, for every one person who says something asinine or critical, like there are how many others, like 10 times that, who maybe didn't say anything, but they were like, that's good. And they moved on.
Yeah. Do you feel like you would describe your brain as a generalist brain, or do you feel like your brain is a specialist brain?
Generalist.
I feel like most entrepreneurs maybe have a more generalist brain because a generalist brain can see the whole picture, can see everything that needs to come to life in order to get a business off the ground. And then we as generalist brain entrepreneurs hold on to things because we're like, we can do it better than a specialist.
Right.
Dish it to the specialist. I mean, it's mind blowing because I go through this exact same thing. My brain is not, I'm a specialist in nothing. I'm an expert in nothing. And all of the imposter syndrome I ever feel is watching people's content online that are specialists in things. It messes my brain up
Mhm.
so much because I'm like,
We
oh my
picked the
gosh,
worst thing to compare to.
they're so smart. They're so smart,
Yeah.
but I'm so less than. But being a generalist brain is such an entrepreneurial superpower because you are the conductor. But then as the conductor, you have to get good at realizing when I give this to a specialist, it gets done better than I would do it. So it's just a fascinating mind game that us entrepreneurs play with ourselves, I think.
Yeah. That's what every one of my interviews, it comes up like it's such a mind game. And I mean, I didn't realize it was going to go like this at the beginning, but the theme of my podcast has turned into more of like handling the mind, the mindset, the mind game, mental toughness, resilience of the challenge, right? The uncertain, choppy waters, probably choppy on their best day. It's hard enough, period. And then we do all the things that you and I have just described to kind of make it worse. We like can lose the reality plot and go to the nightmare plot. But there are a lot of things that you can do. Like that's part of it, right? That's part of the challenge. And there are a lot of things that you can do if you're willing to take the time to learn and explore, to help walk your mind back toward reality, to put things into perspective, and to get up and get back at them. Haley Perlis was on. I had her a few weeks ago, and yeah, she gave me like a list of things like just do this, do this, do this. And it's like, these 2 or 3 step little resets that you can do
Yeah.
to just kind of,
So
okay, I'm good to go again.
were you an athlete?
Yeah.
How do you feel
Yeah. I
like
played baseball in college.
so okay, and baseball is like a super mindset kind of game. Do you feel that connection between your athletic training and your mindset training through athletics and where you are today?
1,000%. But primarily because I was really fortunate, and the coaches, my college coach was big on mindset and resilience. And like he taught us that. I mean, a lot of the things that I say now came from 25 years ago when I was playing ball for this guy. But yes, that's where a lot of it stems from.
Yeah. The connection between high performance athletics and entrepreneurship, I think, is huge. And I think there's an opportunity to bridge that a little bit better for even athletes coming out of college, because I think athletes, you function as entrepreneurs and then you get thrown into a corporate environment. And sometimes there's a big disconnect unless you find a great culture with a great almost sales culture where performance equals reward. But I was in marketing. And so I had this high performance drive to my personality. And it took me a while to be able to get to a place where I could channel my high performance into my career. So early on in my career, I almost just had high performance hobbies. Like I ran marathons and things just to keep that athletic drive going. But now the mindset tricks that I would have as an athlete, I use them all the time in
Yeah.
business. And it is such important learning for anybody who's going into entrepreneurship, because let's say every day in entrepreneurship, you mess something up, you have a fail, something doesn't go according to plan, a client falls off, like, there's something that's going badly every day. And you need the hacks around not just how you reconnect, like you just said, like reconnect to what you're great at, but how do you bounce back? How do you recover? And I had a bad knee injury in college, and it was like, there's no doubt about it. I'm getting back. I'm recovering. I'm working through this. Not selected for a team. How do I recover? How do I show up? The whole game of entrepreneurship is how you show up when things are completely on fire.
Yep.
And I think,
Had car problems, or like we're in an accident, or the day's been an absolute shit show. Well, game time is 3 o'clock. So,
yeah, yeah, you just show up and you get it done. And the ability to take losses and show up the next day and put a W on the board, or the ability to take losses and use it as fuel to motivate your training through the off season. All of those things are super hacks in entrepreneurship.
yep. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to building a team now, it's I want to know, like, what's your athletic background, what kind of teams or coaching did you get? And something else that I don't know why it took me so long to figure this out, but I want to know if somebody else, if their parents were entrepreneurs or not, or if their parents are in business, because there are things that those people get that you don't have to try to teach them or try to enlighten them with, that they've had it for a long time, right? They've seen it. They've seen the sacrifice. um, it's I'm not saying it's not teachable. I'm not saying that anybody who doesn't have those things are a lost cause, but I think we all know the difference in somebody who comes prepackaged with certain DNA versus people who are like, well, this is a project here.
One of my most favorite legacy things that I'm doing right now in my ecosystem is my son is 13 and he edits videos. And so within my ecosystem where it's podcast, video content, clients at the marketing agency, like he does work with me, which is fun to see. And I almost worry that I'm ruining him a little bit because he might be unemployable at some point, where you just get used to entrepreneurship and you think that you can just do things the way you want to do them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a fine line, and I probably will push him to work for someone else besides me at some point, um, and then go build his own thing. But I could see him building a business at a young age and just doing that as his main thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or maybe getting to a point and realizing, like, that's not a thing that I want to do. I think ultimately, as a parent, for me, I guess there are things that I would prefer, but ultimately, if it helps her get clear on what she wants and is good at sooner, that's really the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you have to be connected in passionate levels to what you're building in order for it to be sustainable. It has to be a fun game at some point in order for
Mhm.
your brain to wrap around all of the chaos of entrepreneurship and all of the fails around entrepreneurship. You have to at some point just love it. You have to love the game.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's important for kids to find that early on. It's like, what do you love so
Yeah.
much that you could just do it 24 hours a day and and build a business around it? You were talking about having your wires like frazzled earlier, just because you're
Yeah.
almost like numb to certain things. Do you feel like you're numb to chaos, or numb to, like, something has to be so huge to knock you off of center? Do you feel that now as an entrepreneur?
Hmm. I think that I am actually better. Like, the messier it is, the more stable I am. I tend to respond better under worse circumstances, um, like steadier, the stronger the wind. But I can make a mountain out of a molehill. Like, if it's minor, if it's small, like those are the kind of things that I'm just like, I don't know why. I need to probably work on it more, but I do think that over time I've learned to handle it better, because I've been able to determine, like, in all this mess of uncertainty, here's what matters, and the rest of it's just stuff.
Yeah.
This is what matters, and I think that gives you a sense of control. So, in control is, I believe, where really, like, things become stressful, or you respond to stress differently based on a sense of control. But so if I feel stressed, I know that I'm not doing a good job filtering the situation and recognizing, like, what really matters. And once I know what matters, then I can, like, have I done what I need to do? What's my degree of control over this. And maybe control may not be controlling the outcome. Control may just be clarity on what it is. Mm-hmm. That's okay. And like, that's kind of what helps me manage my temperament.
Where have you felt the most out of control as an entrepreneur, or where have you felt like you had the biggest fail, maybe?
I would have to think about a single one, but I think they all probably, like, a theme would be poor communication with people, and probably being able to look back and realize after the fact, maybe too late, like, oh, this is what they were thinking. Like, I had either, I was misunderstanding something, or maybe I was like applying a filter on a situation. I was making an assumption about someone's perspective that was wrong. And it caused, like, we just didn't get whatever outcome we were looking for. That's probably the biggest theme. I don't dwell on things much. So, I've got a list of failures. I've had businesses, like partners. So I've taken on partners that I shouldn't have, that I was telling myself that I was applying the filters, but I wasn't. Like, I wasn't being honest with myself. Or same thing about, like, assessing like a product market fit, kind of wishing that it was a certain way, and I was more emotional about it than I should have been. Those kind of things. I mean, if you've started a lot of businesses, you've either made mistakes like that or you're a liar.
How many of you started total? I know what's on your LinkedIn, but I feel like there's probably some that are behind the scenes.
I don't even know what's on my LinkedIn. So I think, so I've been a co-founder or acquired probably like 3 dozen.
That's a lot. I think that's a lot. Yeah. I'm on 3. So,
well, a lot of it can come back to qualifying. I had someone introduced to me a long time ago that the introducing party said, this person has, over 100 LLCs. Like, fuck does that matter? Like, that is a complicated tax strategy. Is what that is.
Yeah.
So, 36, some of those were, information product concepts, right? And they did enough that they qualified. They were a business. They still are a business, but that's not the same thing as launching a franchise system.
Right.
So, like, one doesn't equal one in those two things. So I just don't put a lot of stock in the number. I share that, like, a number, because from certain angles, it does lend some credibility. But I'm also, I don't mind saying, like, some of that's bullshit. So if you want to work with me, all that really matters to you is probably about 8 or 10 of those.
What do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned in the 36?
Learning to recognize the difference in someone's ability to do something and their willingness. And I would put that slightly ahead of what we were talking about earlier with the recognizing, like, the epiphany that I had whenever we first did this DISC assessment. And I'm like, we're not all broken. Like, we all just have different versions of these same responses. We all have these different versions of tendencies. Like, I feel so much better now. What about you? What's yours?
I'm currently thinking through and working through the entrepreneurial tendency to think everything is resilience and push and hard work, and learning the line between resilience and being stubborn. And almost as you're talking about having 36 started, it's okay to start and then close it, or start and change directions, or start and stop. And it's always going to be there to come back to and start again, start something different. But I do think maybe the social media trends around entrepreneurship is, don't give up, you're one day away from success, whatever. Like, there's so many clickbaity things that put your brain into a place of, I should be able to muscle this to life. And when you're building a business, there's so many things that are out of your control that sometimes it's not about more effort. It's about different perspective, and it's about different direction.
Yeah. The ability to frame things in a way that how are they going to serve you? Like, that's what it's about. Because some days you need to be told, like, it's about resilience. But other days, there's another way that you need to look at it. And it's ultimately, you have to learn to, this is kind of my thing on adaptability. It's learn how to frame it in a way that's going to serve you. You know, you give me feedback on something and you might be right. You might be wrong. You could be somewhere in the middle. It's not up to you to take it from there. You've done your part. Now it's up to me to figure out how do I use this to serve me best? And what by serve, I mean, like, move me in the direction that I'm trying to go.
Like, do you have a thing that's in the back of your mind that you haven't started yet?
I mean, I have some ideas, but nothing that I'm like serious about. And that's kind of why I started doing the podcast. It's like, I need to do something, and I'm not getting like sparked the way that I once was. So I feel like I always, up until just a few years ago, I always had a good answer for that question. And then all of a sudden, it's just kind of like, and then that's not me. So I'm trying to get back to where, I should have, something on deck, right? It's ready to go at the drop of a hat, and then a next one, and a next one, and next one. Even if I'm not firing them, I know that I'm in the best place mentally when it's like that. You got any tips? You got any ideas? I know you do.
Things that are out there that even somewhat fit into my ecosystem. But I'll tell you, if we come back to this conversation 10 years from now, so like 2034, we have volume 2, or let's say volume 5 of our conversation, because hopefully we come back and do another few. I want to be an angel investor to basically support entrepreneurs who are in this phase. And so I love that you've taken like a mentorship approach. And so far I haven't mentored entrepreneurs because I almost don't feel like I know what I'm doing. So I don't entirely feel qualified to be a mentor yet, but that's where I want to be. I want to be a mentor who also has funds, who can help not just be the person who's asking the correct questions, but be able to add the fuel to the fire where need be to build something great. So that's in the back of my mind. That's that's down the road. And there's a couple other small ones that would fit into the ecosystem to maybe get to that part down the road, but that's the current vision for the ecosystem.
Yeah, I love that. You don't have to have all the answers to be a mentor or a guide, or because I mean, nobody has all the answers. And part of my brand as a coach and a mentor is authenticity. And I think anyone who's worked with me will tell you, like, if he doesn't know the answer, he's going to say that, or he'll tell you, like, this is what we're struggling with. Like, how do we get through it? I'm bringing them along with me. Yeah. And sometimes they're helping me solve it. Like, hey, I'm not above that.
I like that framework. I'll see if that gets me over the hump.
Are you going to stay in fitness? Do you know?
I just love the fitness space. And so even, having the marketing agency really be focused on fitness clients, it's just it's a sweet spot. It's an overlap of passions. It fits really well. There's so much happening in the recovery world right now and in the wellness world as a whole. So I find myself more so thinking of fitness as the core, and then like what's tangential to the core that expands my footprint a little bit. So yeah, I see myself staying connected to the fitness space for sure.
I mean, it's grown up a lot in the time that we've been in it. And if
it's still needed. Here we are, however many years you've been in the fitness world, it's still needed. There's still tools around how to live healthy lives. There's still education that's needed around, okay, yeah, you could do Ozempic. Here's 3 other ways to achieve the same result. There's just so much misinformation out there, and I don't think we can rely on our school system to provide it. We can't rely on the government to provide it. So like the fitness industry needs to step up and be the resources for better health and wellness guidance as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe that it's still as much of a need as it is, but the amount of misinformation gets pumped out. It's pumped out faster than the amount of correct information. And so I think this is just always going to be a game that we need to play as an industry, of just like, we need to keep on saying the things that are correct. And I know there's so many different ways to skin a cat, but there are certain things that are true, and there's certain things that are correct. And we need to be resources for people who are trying to find their correct path within all those things. So,
yep. And I think that's an advantage that the industry has. There are a lot of good people coming in who want good information. They want to be guided in the right direction, but the resources, it's still not exactly clear it's not obvious to everyone, like, where the right resources are.
Yeah.
But as long as we've got the volume of good people still trying to come in, and there are already good people in the industry who are trying to stand out through the misinformation.
Yep.
I think that kind of makes this a season of the industry maturing. Like, it's just part of the process that an industry would go through as it grows up, because it's really young.
It is young, but I think you're in the same kind of place where whether you're an entrepreneur, or you're a stay-at-home mom, or you're a business person working a 9-to-5, if you have your health and wellness dialed in, the echo of that through the rest of your life is huge. And I don't think I could do what I do if I didn't have my health and wellness. I don't want to say it's dialed in, but it's mostly dialed in, and have that as a core, and have that as an outlet, and have that as a place where I pull strength and confidence from. And so the fact that people don't have that as a core, I just want to give that core to every single person that I can, and help them realize that it is a trickle down through everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like the single greatest gift you can give yourself, and you can give your loved ones, is just being aware of that connection, and being aware of how your health is truly wealth. And we only have one life. We only have one body. Like, let's do it correctly.
Yeah. And so we've talked a lot about, in this conversation, about things you can control, things you can't control. And there are a lot of elements of your health that you can't control. But the ones that we're talking about, how active you are, what you put in your body, you have total control. And if you're a parent, you have control over more than just you. Like, that is a powerful thing.
Garbage in, garbage out. And I think that all the time, as I'm building business, as I'm writing content, as I'm showing up for my kid, what you put in your brain, what you put in your ears, what you put in your body, all of those inputs, if those are trash, you're going to get trash back out. And so whenever I've been in a low point or in a setback season, that's what I come back to, is like, I come back to my health. I come back to my inputs, I come back to controlling my controllables, and I build back from there. And that's how important fitness is for me. And that's why when you say, like, will you stay in fitness? I almost need to, because
that makes sense.
Because it's my core, it's like core to.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Jessica, this is awesome. This is a great conversation. Thank you for doing this. This has been fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick. It's great to chat with you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found the show valuable, you can say thanks and show your support simply by taking a quick second to like, share, and comment on the show. You can also find more information about each of my guests, all of the resources from the show, and myself at nickberry.info/TBOJ.